All right, everybody. I should be live. That's just what I assume, but who really knows? So please let me know in the chat and in the comments if I'm actually live because we're doing another Monday night. And this is what we do to get information and to consider things related to preparedness to ensure that we're all on the same page because there's a lot of things happening right now and there's a lot of whiplash. So good to see everybody. We do have Welcome to My Life with the 5 coming with the 308 by 308. I like both of you. So equally, and I appreciate what you bring to the table. We also have Mr. Landfill with the 5 by 5 Grizzly Tactics. I'm live but skipping. And you know what? That sounds about right. So we're going to get started, though. There's a lot of things happening, and we're going to go over the initial discussion about the ceasefire situation between Iran and Israel. And then we're going to talk about how there has been, let's just say, some argument about whether or not it's legitimate or if everybody agrees to it. And then we're going to talk about some things that have happened historically that might make you question whether or not you should relax now. And the other thing to keep in mind is that we're going to talk about domestic issues that are being produced because of this current conflict scenario. Whether or not they come to fruition, it's still something worth being aware of so you can be better prepared and understand just, how volatile everything is currently. So better audio now, says Derek. I appreciate that. Little choppy, says Arizona Desert Rat. So, it just likes to do this to me every so often, and it's very frustrating, but we try to get through it, don't we? So go ahead and do something real quick here, which always seems to fix things. There we go. And we're just going to let it ride. So let's get into it. First off, we have a statement from President Donald Trump about the ceasefire. So, congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions. For 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that it could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. I have no idea how I got through that without stumbling because some of these run-on sentences are quite the challenge, but we made it through, and this is the statement from the president regarding the ceasefire. Now, some of the controversy here about whether or not it's a legitimate thing surrounds the fact that Iran's foreign minister came out and said otherwise. So just to kind of touch base on that really quickly, now this is reported on by the Times of Israel, but this was actually put out by them directly on X from their personal account. Iran foreign minister, no final ceasefire agreement. If Israel stops, will stop. And basically it comes down here and says, as of now, there's no agreement on any ceasefire or cessation of military operations. Aragchi writes, however, provided that the Israeli regime stops its illegal aggression against the Iranian people no later than 4 a.m. Tehran time, we have no intention to continue our response afterwards. Aragchi adds, the final decision on the cessation of our military operations will be made later. So, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's them trying to appear strong in the face of all these attacks that they just recently endured. I'm just not totally sure, but I do know that we have two conflicting answers about this current ceasefire scenario from two different countries that are involved in the conflict. So that is something to consider. And the reason why tonight's live stream title is Iran and Israel agree to ceasefire but don't assume it's over yet is because even if they agree to the ceasefire and everything is exactly as it was said by President Trump, doesn't mean that a ceasefire is going to necessarily hold or be, legitimately long lasting. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But first I want to touch on how Iran retaliated, sort of, and the fact that, yes, that would have been an act of aggression that would have been met by probably a larger show of force, but I think it was more optical in nature, presentative, in order to show the people of Iran that they were willing to do something about what happened, but without actually starting a conflict with the United States of America, which they would likely not do very well in. So Let's go here. We have some good people in the chat. I just want to say hi. We have Mr. Landfill. I haven't checked. Did oil go up? And we're going to talk about that later in tonight's stream, but actually it went down. And that's kind of also contrarian to historical precedent when it comes to how oil reacts to conflict in that region, especially regarding Iran. So we're going to discuss that later in tonight's stream, but that is a good question because you would assume it went up, but in reality, it actually dropped by, I believe, 7%. So that is something that I found interesting. Northern Girl Hobbies, glad you're here. Thanks for being here and modding tonight. Rhonda Pagan, good to see you. Desert 1776 is here as well, and The Watchman, which is great. Who's going to trust America after this? Well, I'll be completely honest with you here. I don't think anyone really trusts America at this point in time when it comes to geopolitics. But at the same time, I guess when you're on top of it, you're on top, right? So it's just kind of where we're at this, at this point in time. Matt Lindberger said the stock market is good, I hear. And yes, it actually did rally around the situation, especially with the oil prices falling. So very interesting situation we're in currently. Now, let's talk about what happened here really fast, and then we're going to talk about why you shouldn't necessarily get relaxed quite yet and why you shouldn't assume it's just over because President Trump said so. First off, we have Iran retaliates for U.S. airstrikes, launches missile attack on American military base in Qatar. Now, even though this would have been reasonably retaliatory in the sense of if a country bombs you, you shoot something back at that country because of what they did. Like, we can all agree that I think most countries would assume that that would be a reasonable thing to do. Regardless, being an American, I don't like the idea of our troops being targeted, and this did happen, but there's some more to the story, so that's why I wanted to touch on this really quick, just in case you weren't aware of what occurred here. Let's see. A Defense Department official is confirming a missile attack from Iran on a U.S. military base in Qatar, but says no casualties have been reported. The official said Monday that AI Udeid Air Base was attacked, or Al Udeid, sorry, AI is just so prevalent these days, was attacked by short-range and medium-range ballistic missiles. The U.S. is continuing to monitor the situation, said the official. The confirmation came soon after Iran acknowledged the missile attack, saying the attack in Qatar matched the number of bombs dropped by the United States on its nuclear sites over the weekend, signaling its likely desire to de-escalate. Iran launched attacks Monday, retaliating for the American bombing of its nuclear sites and escalating tensions in the volatile region. Shortly after the attack, the Gulf nation of Bahrain, that is home to the U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters, temporarily suspended flights in its airspace, which is similar to what Qatar did shortly before it was hit. Now, this was most likely demonstrative because, we have a lot of information about the fact that, we were warned. The U.S. was aware that this was going to happen before it occurred, and then here's just some evidence about that, just so you can be aware. Why Iran possibly warned Qatar about its attack ahead of time. Okay, CNN's Clarissa Ward is in Tel Aviv as Iran launched strikes toward a U.S. military base in neighboring Qatar, but according to one source, the Iranians warned the Qataris that the strikes were coming. In short, the U.S. likely knew ahead of time. Ward breaks down why Tehran issued the warning and what it did. Now, that's all in video format, but we don't need to watch that because that is, from my understanding, what occurred, which meant that we had the ability to stop the strike from being successful and to maintain zero casualty percentage when it came to U.S. service members. So that strike was, like I said, mostly demonstrative. It was, Tehran's way of saying, look, we did something. Look, we shot at America, basically, when it came to trying to appease their population who would have wanted them to retaliate in some form or fashion. But it definitely didn't do any actual damage in the sense of accomplishing the mission that you would think would be intended. So, and the fact that they were warning about it ahead of time kind of goes to show you what their thought process was. They don't want to escalate the war with us because of military capabilities, right? Now, this ceasefire situation could be a buying time strategy. Now, that's something that a lot of people have already said in the comments tonight, but it's true that the ceasefire could be a stalling tactic. Now, it could be a stalling tactic from either side of the conflict, right? It could be Iran stalling until they can regroup or until they can move some of the, nuclear materials to a more secure location, or until they can get additional assistance from foreign allies when it comes to getting, nuclear weapons or other weapons of mass destruction that may or may not be being offered to them at this point in time from countries like, potentially Pakistan or Russia or China or anybody else. So that's something that could be occurring if they did in fact agree to a ceasefire. It could be for a buffer. Now, on our side, it could also be a buffer in the sense of posturing for the next strike, or let's just say, maybe reorganizing or re-strategizing in order to finally eliminate the regime in Iran, because a regime change has been thrown around so often here lately that I wouldn't be surprised if this was another fake out. Because let's be honest, with what happened with the B-2 bombers and with what happened with the telegraphing of the recent strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, it shows that the current administration is trying to use deceptive tactics in order to accomplish the mission. And that's obviously what this could be, especially if Iran is coming out saying we didn't actually agree to this. So imagine a situation where the U.S. says, hey, we have a ceasefire. Israel says, hey, there's a ceasefire. And Iran is saying, what are you talking about? What's ceasefire? And then Iran, because they're not aligned with the idea of a ceasefire, does something else. Now the blame for why the ceasefire failed is no longer on the Western powers, it's on Iran. And now anything that happens thereafter is, well, we tried and we had a ceasefire, but you guys had to break it, so now we have to do the thing. And I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm saying it's a possibility that you should watch out for. And I also think that the ceasefire in general is fragile, because they always are. Real quick, we got a great super chat that just came in from My Corner T-Bar. And what's the rest of this name? I can't see it. It won't let me. And that's very frustrating for me. So let's pop it over. My Corner T-Bar and Stuff, which I actually appreciate that name even more now, says this war was in WWE style. And I agree. It definitely seems to have some level of showcasing. Right? Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that it is strange, and I know that this is, some level of self-promotion, right? Of course, having ownership of a company and everything else relates to that, but all this information being put out by the president on Truth Social exclusively is interesting. First off, it's a interesting way to choose to directly communicate with everybody when there's pretty solid evidence that not everybody is on Truth Social, but also it forces media and people who want to maintain a level of that direct communication and understanding faster than the rest of the population to be part of that network in order to get that information as quickly as possible. So that is also something that's been kind of interesting about this current situation. Now, Paladin 1 says, Iran will break the agreement. They said before they don't want it. And that's the thing. Paladin 1, they're also saying that they didn't even agree to anything in the first place. So, but that's why I think that's a possibility for why this could be being used as a leverage point to say, hey, look, they broke the agreement they said they were cool with. And now we have no choice but to do the thing. So, that's a real concern that I have, and it's something that I think is reasonable to consider based on the current situation. Now, Adam Lowitz, I hope I said it correctly. Thank you so much for the channel membership that you just signed up for. So if you want to be a channel member, you can hit the join button down below underneath this live stream. And what that does is it gives you access to private live streams where we hang out and chat and just kind of have a casual format conversation where it's just my way of saying thank you to people who want to support the channel directly, financially, which is greatly appreciated. So I want to do something to make sure that that appreciation is felt. And at the same time, if you want to support the channel, but you're not in a situation where you want to do it financially, which is totally understandable, the best thing you can do is, hit the subscribe button, the like button, and share this video out, because it helps the channel a lot more than you might think, while also not costing you anything. So I would appreciate that as well. And Replay Crew, make sure you check in, because I always like hearing from you all, and it's very motivating to know you come back to get this information the next day or even the next week in some cases. So now, getting into some interesting stuff here. Why am I, let's just say, I'm not being negative, but I'm a little bit cynical when it comes to ceasefire agreements being long-lasting or, security guarantees. Well, here's why, okay? So first off, here's an example for you, because we have many modern examples. Here's an article. This is from March of this year. Why Israel broke its fragile truce in Gaza and is promising more strikes. Okay. Israel shattered its ceasefire with Hamas by launching a barrage of deadly airstrikes overnight Tuesday that killed hundreds of Palestinians across the Gaza Strip. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed that this is just the beginning. More than 400 people were killed and hundreds more injured, according to health officials in the Hamas-run enclave. Video captured by an NBC News crew at Nasser Hospital in Gaza's southern city of Khan Yunis showed charred tent camps and all kinds of things that we don't want to discuss in this live stream due to the platform we're currently on. Now, here's the thing. Why did the ceasefire break down? Both Israel and the Trump administration have blamed Hamas for the resumption of hostilities, citing the militant group's refusal to meet Israel's demand to release more hostages in return for the resumption of talks. Okay, so first off, apply that to the current situation. If Iran is found to maybe be harboring additional, uranium or nuclear material, or if they are found to have additional nuclear sites, or the nuclear sites that were destroyed maybe are still somewhat operational. Who knows what justification there could be, but clearly in the Gaza scenario, when they said Hamas resumed hostilities, they broke the ceasefire, right? And do we have proof that Hamas resumed hostilities? I don't know. But we do know that that's why the ceasefire was broken by Israel, right? Who's part of the Western agreement of this whole situation with Iran. Now, the other way to look at this from is the situation in Ukraine, where, Russia has also broken many ceasefires over these years and years of conflict, okay? Russia's ceasefire in Ukraine lasted only 30 hours, and even then it appears to have been very limited in scope, with accusations of violations on both sides. Now, this is an article from April of this year, right? So both these ceasefire situations that I'm telling you about right now happened this year, like just months ago. So the assumption that this one might not work out too well is reasonable to have, at least in my opinion, okay? Kiev said there have been no air raid alerts on Sunday during Vladimir Putin's Easter truce, and President Vladimir Zelensky suggested this could be the easiest format to extend for 30 days and possibly more. The U.S. had tried to organize a 30-day ceasefire, but that never took hold, and this latest chapter underscores the difficulty in achieving even a brief pause in fighting. Russia insisted on a number of conditions, including a halt to Ukraine, rearming and recruiting new fighters, as well as underlying causes of the conflict. Okay, so ceasefires are fragile. It's reasonable to assume that they might not work out. And the other thing to keep in mind is that they usually come with stipulations. So, for example, the ceasefire right now between Iran and Israel, if it's truly, what we're being told, Israel gets an additional, I believe, 12 hours to maintain military operations past what Iran is allowed to have. So Iran has to start their ceasefire, maybe it's 6 hours, before Israel has to start their ceasefire. So what they're basically saying is that Iran is going to sit there for a 6-hour block of time and just take whatever Israel dishes out in that time period, and then Israel will be done, and then everybody's done, and now we're good to go. And clearly, you could see that going wrong very quickly, depending on what Israel uses that 6-hour time block for, and how much Iran is willing to take in regards to, being literally attacked during what's supposed to be a ceasefire. So just remember, stipulations don't always go in the favor of both parties, and it's very easy for these things to fall apart very quickly. Okay, now back into the chat for a minute. Sherman Sales, if the ceasefire fails, Magic should dig up the PSA dagger. Look, a lot of my plans haven't worked out the way that I had hoped they would, based on a lot of different things, especially in the realm of, financial scenarios regarding the channel and everything else. So, my plans for getting a bobcat or a skid steer of some kind just didn't really work out as soon as I would have liked. And had that happened and I had access to some degree of excavation, then it would have been much easier to do that. But as of right now, I really don't want to use my auger and my vacuum to go out there and shop vac all the dirt out once again when I should be using heavy equipment. So a lot of my plans got slowed down a lot more than I would have liked, but it is what it is, right? Same reason I don't have my 1988 or 1991 Chevy 1500 that I was hoping to have by now as a work truck that just could be fun to have. So life happens, man. It just is what it is, right? Let's see here. We have let's see. White 7 Mike says it was a work anyway, in my opinion. I'm not sure what that exactly meant. Maybe you didn't fully send the full thought there because of autocorrect and whatnot. But send it again. Maybe we can read it. Let's see. BB has a bloodlust. No way this pause holds, says DB Cooper. Well, and then the thing to consider there is that we understand that if the current ceasefire is structured in the way that it is, that Israel will have their chance to do whatever they want for a block of time, which is, would be hard for a country to agree to, which does give you some pause as to whether or not there really is a true agreement in place, or whether or not maybe certain factions of Iran agreed to it, but other ones maybe didn't. And this could be the start of that regime change that a lot of people have been discussing, right? So imagine if the West has already selected new leadership in Iran, and they're like, hey, if you do what we say and work with us on this, we'll make sure you're in power here in the next 6 months, right? Oh, okay. Well, here's a ceasefire we want you guys to agree to. Do you agree to it? Oh, yeah, sure. If you say we're going to be in charge and you're going to get rid of these other guys, I guess we'll do it. Great, sounds good. Hey, those other guys, they did the thing that broke the ceasefire. We don't like those guys, so we're going to get rid of those guys. And then now that here's the new people that we actually do like, right? So, like, I mean, isn't that Middle East, 101 at this point in time? I don't know. So, let's see here. Shovel is fine, says my roost to your face. I don't, I'm in North Dakota. The dirt is pretty hard to get through at times, and I buried that gun real deep because of the frost line. So I'm not going to shovel that out. What's funny is the movies drive me insane, especially in like SHTF movies and stuff like that, where, somebody perishes and then, the person spends the next, well, according to the movie, 45 minutes, digging a proper burial site for them. But in reality, digging that would not take 45 minutes. It would take a lot longer and a lot of energy and a lot of time. And it's probably not something that's going to happen on a regular basis if people are, disheveled or displaced. So it's just something I think about regularly. I'm like, it's kind of like how people believe silencers are literally silent. It's just Hollywood mumbo jumbo. So now here's some things to keep in mind when it comes to domestic issues regarding this particular conflict and some of the information that just recently came out in the sense of threats here at home. So I want to make sure to touch base on this because I do feel that there is still a cause for concern here, and it is something that the DOJ is currently investigating and trying to ensure wouldn't be an issue, but how can you clearly ensure that? You can't. So we got to discuss that. And I just think this is one of the more relevant things to your personal preparedness, especially here in the United States with everything that's going on right now, okay? DOJ on high alert for Iranian nationals living illegally in the U.S., Bondi says, okay? So, and this is an article, I believe, from today. Attorney General Pam Bondi was questioned Monday during a House budget hearing about Iranian nationals who entered the country illegally during the Biden administration after the Trump administration warned the conflict with Iran raised threat levels in the United States. Rep. Tony Gonzalez, Republican Texas, asked if the Attorney General knew how many Iranian nationals in the United States have been convicted of crimes. Bondi said she was unsure, but that more than 1,000 entered the country during the last administration. And I can tell you, we are on high alert, and everyone is looking at that very closely, Bondi said. U.S. Border Patrol arrested 1,504 Iranians at the southern border during President Joe Biden's term, and nearly half of them, or 729, were released into the United States, according to senior Customs and Border Protection source. Bondi's remarks echo those of the Department of Homeland Security, which issued a notice one day prior saying that the Iran conflict is causing a heightened threat environment in the United States. The DHS cited the possibility of extremists in the United States independently mobilizing to violence if Iranian leaders were to call for it. The department also said cyber attacks and incidents of anti-Semitism could increase, which, right. So, Gonzalez asked Bondi about the threat of Iranian sleeper cells, to which the Attorney General said she could not talk about that in this setting. The line of questioning during a hearing about the Department of Justice's budget proposal for the upcoming fiscal year came amid a rapidly evolving conflict in the Middle East that Trump chose to intervene in over the weekend. Now, here is just a little map of everything that happened when it came to the U.S. strikes on the nuclear sites. And if you're not aware that that happened by now, you must have been having a very good weekend. But this is what started this whole conversation, and the ceasefire and everything else was the U.S. targeting nuclear sites in Iran with B-2 bombers using bunker buster bombs that weigh 30,000 pounds. And there you have it. Also using submarines launching Tomahawk missiles. So that's also like pretty insane, right? So if anything, if you guys don't remember, and I'm going to bring this up really quick, back in the first Trump administration, early into his administration, just like we are now, he struck Syria, right? He launched strikes on Syria while having dinner with Chinese representatives. So you do wonder if some of this is also just Trump's version of negotiation or posturing or something along those lines to say, hey, look what we'll do if you mess with us or don't agree to our terms. I don't necessarily want to see that happening, and I'm not somebody who is going to promote the idea of war in foreign countries if it can be avoided. But at the same time, like this seems like in line with some of his previous actions. So just keep that in mind, because that didn't turn into anything major, but it was a demonstration of power that maybe gave some foreign adversaries something to consider, right? So just keep that in mind. Now, the Trump administration, oh, that's the airstrikes and everything else, okay? The DOJ brought an indictment against 3 men last year in connection to a murder-for-hire scheme that allegedly originated in Iran that involved assassinating Trump before the 2024 election, as well as killing a journalist. One of the men remains at large. He is an Afghan national, but was allegedly being paid by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, an Iran-based militant group. The charges announced today expose Iran's continued brazen attempts to target U.S. citizens, including President-elect Donald Trump, other government leaders, and dissidents who criticize the regime in Tehran, FBI Director Christopher Wray said at the time of the indictment. And that is a good reminder that these things have been prosecuted, and there are people who are missing from the case, such as that individual from Afghanistan. So there obviously is the potential for something bad to happen here stateside. Now, here's one thing I want to mention, because I see it come up quite a bit, and I think it's perfectly understandable and reasonable for people to feel like nothing's going to happen, because the majority of the time that's the correct statement. The majority of the time you're right. Nothing's probably going to happen. And it would be easier if I was to put this into terms of like a casino, right? And we were gambling on whether or not something was going to happen. You would most often put your money on nothing's going to happen, because the chances of that occurring are higher. It's just the reality of the way things are. However, that's not what we prepare for as people who want to be ready for emergencies and for crises to happen. We prepare for that, 1 to 10% chance that something goes wrong, rather than the, 90% chance that everything goes right. And it's just something I want to bring up, because saying nothing's going to happen and just going with that is a safe bet, but it doesn't mitigate the fact that being prepared is a good idea. And it also goes along the lines of a level of normalcy bias and taking the easy way out. And for example, it'd be like if you were to let's just use this in terms that I'm sure many of you will understand. If you were to vote Democrat in San Francisco, and then because how many people are going to be upset with you, and how much of a controversy are you going to create, and how much backlashes are going to be, right? So that's the easy choice, and it's not brave of you to do that, right? But if you were to do, the opposite in San Francisco, now you're in a very, most likely, I would assume, difficult situation based on the current politics and the way people react to certain things. So that's something I just wanted to bring up, because always saying nothing's going to happen is generally the winning bet, but that's not why we prepare, because we prepare for that 1 to 10% that it could happen. And if it does, at least I did something to be more ready for it, so I don't have to panic now. Because saying nothing's going to happen won't help you when something does happen, right? So that's just something I wanted to get off my chest, because it's been something I've seen thrown around a lot lately. And it's true. You're right. The likelihood of something happening is lower than something not happening. That's 100%. You're right. But that's what prepping is for. Like, we prepare for the thing that is unlikely. And then if it does happen, we're just glad we did something. So I want to bring that up. What's up, Rip Curl Readiness? Good to see you. Always glad to have you around. Thank you for modding tonight. Let's see here. We got some good people here in the chat. Just want to say hi. White 7 Mike says, that was the Libyans in Back to the Future. That's one of my favorite moments in that movie. The Libyans! Sometimes I just say that randomly when I'm in a group, and then everyone just stares at me awkwardly. So, but I do a lot of things that actually creates that reaction, so I'm kind of used to it at this point in time. Rip Curl says, you really think this is all over with? And I said, I know you might have just recently joined, but the beginning of this live stream was probably not, right? The rational thought process is there's a good chance it isn't, but let's hope it is, because that's still what I would prefer, and I think what's best for everybody at the end of the day. Now, Florida Sheepdog, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. And breaking news, mass panic breaks out over not having anything to panic over. Yeah, 100%, and that is sometimes just the way things work. So MB came in with the I highly doubt it's over, and I agree with that sentiment as well. There's a lot of things that are occurring, and we're getting a lot of different information and competing information. So let's talk about why the Strait of Hormuz isn't closed yet, and why at least somebody doesn't think it will be. According to a guest on Jim Cramer's show, which makes me a little bit concerned that it will be closed, because this is being talked about by someone who has a terrible track record of predicting anything. So, RBN Energy executive Rusty Braziel told CNBC's Jim Cramer on Monday that he doubts Iran will close the Strait of Hormuz, a vital oil shipping passage. Now, this is a threat that they said they already approved in their parliament and that they were willing to do, but I mean, it'd be a catastrophic situation for them to do such a thing, especially because of how much of that oil ends up in Chinese hands, and they need alliances with countries like China at this point in time. So I'm not sure how that would benefit them besides just, it'd be like lighting your own house on fire because there's bugs in it, right? Yeah, it would definitely, hurt the bugs, but now you don't have a house. And that's a lot of what would happen to Iran. Financially, it would definitely hurt them economically, but it would also hurt their partnerships with other countries in the process. So if they end up cutting it off, they're going to end up cutting off themselves, Braziel said. So it's pretty unlikely that that happens unless things get a lot more dire than they are and than they seem to be right now. So if the ceasefire holds, at least in this person's opinion, it's likely that the Strait of Hormuz will not close. Now, if it closes, that does hurt all of us quite a bit, at least financially. I mean, I don't know if it'll hurt us any other way, but that still stings, especially when things are, continually, tighter and more expensive. So, following the U.S.'s attack on Iran's key nuclear sites, there are concerns that the country might be threatening to shut down the strait. A report from Iran's state-owned Press TV said its parliament on Sunday approved the closure. CNBC could not independently identify the report. According to Braziel, we're just going with it, okay? Iran has threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz when a major conflict arises for more than 20 years. He said the country has never actually closed it because it has a lot to lose from such action, saying that Iran exports 1.7 million barrels a day through the strait. The market has also concluded that Iran won't close the strait. Braziel continued, pointing out that oil prices dropped on Monday. If Iran were to close the strait and remove its oil from the market, the price of the commodity would rise, but the loss of so many barrels would make U.S. exports more valuable, he added. Braziel also warned that the U.S.'s restrictions on ethane trade to China pose serious issues for exporters. Ethane is a natural gas used to produce a variety of items, yada, 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 yada. Okay, so their opinion was that it's unlikely Iran will close the Strait of Hormuz, and that's my opinion as well, just based on historical precedent. However, it is kind of their trump card in many ways. If they want to pull it out, it would create a lot of chaos and it would cause a lot of damage financially and economically for other countries, but it would also hurt them in the process. So, but that is something they may be ready to do based on how some of their soldiers have acted in the past. So let's jump back in the chat here really quick. Darth Doodlebutt says it's the lukewarm warm. I'll take it, whatever that means. I'm on board. Let's see here. Then we also have some other good people jumping in with the 100s. I like it. And Daniel McDonald says drill, baby, drill. Now, listen. Not gonna lie, that would definitely benefit my neck of the woods. In North Dakota, we're heavily reliant on the energy sector for the local economy. And yeah, if oil goes up in price and these companies decide it's worth investing in additional rigs and getting everything else up and running, and then also paying for more people to come out here and work, it's just beneficial to the economy. Like, that's the reality of it. But for America and for Americans at the gas pump, oil prices maintaining a low value is good for us, right? Like, we want to be able to fill our tanks up. We want to be able to buy things at a reasonable price. We don't want shipping and freight and everything else to become so unaffordable that we can't get groceries. So there's a balance there, and the oil prices dropping is good for us as American consumers, but it is something that can be easily manipulated if things go south out there. So just keep that in mind. It also makes you wonder, with the current market showing the stock market rallying and the oil prices dropping, it's amazing how much power the U.S. military has when it comes to affecting the global economy by taking actions in certain areas, right? And so, just to kind of like throw out something speculatory, you could easily try to manipulate economic hardship by creating designed chaos in the Middle East to either move oil prices up in order to generate additional support for domestic production, or by lowering them, like what we just witnessed, to help all of the people that need financial assistance maintain a level of stability. So it's interesting to kind of look at it through that lens, isn't it? Now, let's see here. Soli Dio Gloria says fake power struggles, fake state of affairs. And yeah, Hustle Bones. No one said it's over, bro. Ceasefire ain't a peace treaty. Yeah, and that's what we've been saying the whole night. So I have to assume you maybe got here just recently, or you're responding to someone else in the chat. So possibly that's where we're at. But I just wanted to mention that, yeah, no one's saying it's over, which is why the title of tonight's live stream is "Don't Assume It's Over Yet," right? But I agree with you. Like, a ceasefire is good to have in the sense of moving towards peace, but they're fragile, they're easily broken, and we've seen them be broken multiple times just this year in the other conflicts happening around the world. So, what's the situation in Djibouti? Says my coffee, tea, bar, and stuff. I don't know, to be honest with you. So maybe I should know that, but I don't. And I'm never going to tell you guys I know something if I don't, to be honest with you. And that's, I think, how everybody should be. But I'm sure many people, I don't know, basically try to just make that appearance that they're all knowing or at least very knowledgeable, so they won't tell you when they don't know something. That's just my understanding, okay? Let's see here. It looks like what's happening in Djibouti is, I just like saying Dija because it feels good. Djibouti is evacuating Japanese people from Israel. Is that what's happening? Not really sure what's going on with that. So, interesting. Now, let's jump into a couple other things real quick. Just wanted to make sure to say thanks for the super chat, by the way, in case I didn't actually say thank you, which I do appreciate it. White 7 Mike still doesn't know. Don't worry. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about what other countries might do for Iran now that this all happened. Okay, now this is definitely a concern to be aware of as well, and it is a possible issue we might encounter here in the near future. Many nations ready to supply Iran with their nuclear warheads, top Putin aid. Now, Moscow has since walked this information back, saying, "Oh no. But that's not how this works, right? We see this, we hear this, and we understand that this is likely what they meant." So, Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, which, by the way, is the person who said there is no ceasefire, announced on Sunday that he will travel to Moscow for high-level talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin following overnight U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Speaking at a press conference on the sidelines of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Summit in Istanbul, Mr. Araghchi said that consultations with President Putin would take place Monday morning. The move comes in the immediate aftermath of the U.S. targeting 3 key Iranian nuclear sites in what Washington has described as a necessary step to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Russia is a friend of Iran. We always consult with each other, Araghchi told reporters. I'm going to Moscow this afternoon for serious consultations with the Russian president tomorrow morning. Okay? Now, let's see here. Gonna jump down here. In Moscow, Dmitry Medvedev, ex-Russia president and the deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council, launched an attack on President Trump, accusing him of plunging the United States into a new war in the Middle East. Medvedev published his reaction on Telegram, stating bluntly, Trump, who came in as a peacemaker president, has started a new war for the U.S. The former Russian president questioned the effectiveness of the U.S. operation, saying it had failed to achieve any substantial military objectives. Critical infrastructure of the nuclear fuel cycle appears to have been unaffected or sustained only minor damage, he wrote. The enrichment of nuclear material, and now we can say it outright, the future production of nuclear weapons, will continue. Mr. Medvedev claims that a number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear weapons. He did not identify which countries or nations he was referring to. Okay? Mr. Medvedev further stated that the Israeli population was now living under constant threat, with explosions rocking multiple parts of the country. The U.S. is now entangled in a new conflict, with prospects of a ground operation looming on the horizon. Now, something to kind of keep in mind. First off, I don't doubt there's countries who would be willing to arm Iran. I think Pakistan comes to mind immediately, and then we also have North Korea, right? Like, we have plenty of foreign adversarial countries that are willing to do such a thing. But the other thing to keep in mind here is that Russia's in a weird situation because, at least according to my knowledge, there are somewhere around 2 million Russians that live in Israel, right? Or something along those lines. And I think that has caused Russia to pause when it came to supporting Iran directly, because they have Russian citizens that they have to consider when it comes to if they were, to aid in any sort of strikes or anything along those lines on Israel. So let's see here really quick. Just want to make sure I kind of verify that information. Okay, there we go. Okay, so 1.3 million people in Israel speak Russian, according to AI overview from Google. So if that's super accurate or not, I don't know, but that's also what Wikipedia says. Regardless, that's a lot of people that Russia would have to consider before aiding Iran with any strikes or anything militarily in the region. So keep that in mind. But there's definitely a possibility of other countries arming Iran. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that you have the possibility of other countries arming Iran by doing it in the sense of like by proxy. And when I say that, what I mean is it's very likely, at least in my opinion, that Iran already has a nuclear weapon or some sort of weapon of mass destruction based on the fact that there's such a thing as lost nuclear warheads, there's such a thing as a black market, there's such a thing as nefarious dealings going on behind closed doors. So it wouldn't surprise me if they already had one, and this might be the avenue of approach for them to actually declare themselves a nuclear power, and using this opportunity to say, well, we didn't have one, but now so and so gave us one, so now we have one, right? Whereas now they have a reason for owning the one that they currently already have, right? Like that's something that could definitely happen, that it wouldn't surprise me just because of the fact that it's been so long, right? Imagine having the resources that Iran has, where they have all these proxies that they fund and all these militias and everything else, and then having the connections that Iran has, and then imagine them for the last 30 years just not trying to get a weapon in any malicious type of way because the IAEA said we couldn't. So I have feelings that there's a chance that they may already possess one, right? But this might give them the opportunity to say, now we do, right? And without having to actually get one, and without having to actually have another country provide them with one, it could just be their way of finally coming out publicly. So, Darth Doodlebutt says, it's all theater, but the poor people who are dying are real. And I think that's the big takeaway that we always have from these scenarios, is that regardless of how you feel about it, regardless of if you're on the president's side, if you're on Israel's side, if you think Iran is in the right to retaliate, or whatever side you're on, right? The biggest concern, it doesn't matter, Ukraine, Russia, whoever you want to bring into the conversation, the biggest concern and the biggest issue is the fact that people that don't have a say in any of these things are the ones who perish and lose their lives, and the people who make the decisions never do. They're always just seem to be fine, right? So it's that to me is like the tragedy of it all, is that us as just the average person, the citizens of our country, like I could say, hey, I didn't want you guys to bomb Iran. Like I was against that, right? But it doesn't matter to Iran if I think that if they were to do some sort of cyber attack or some sort of terror attack or something along those lines here in the States in the form of retaliation, it doesn't matter to them if I wish that didn't happen. That's still going to happen to me regardless, right? So that's what always creates the biggest issues and the biggest moral concerns, is the fact that we, the average people, don't have really any say in these scenarios, but we're the ones who pay the ultimate price at the end of the day. So it's very unfortunate. And of course, our soldiers who want to serve their country and want to take care of us here back home and protect everybody and do their job are doing just that. They're doing their job. So, good for them for pulling off this mission successfully and coming back safely and providing the service that they signed up for and volunteered for, but it also puts them in harm's way and puts them in danger, and that's something that a lot of us would like to not see, of course, as well. So there's a lot of things occurring where we just kind of have to go with it because we don't have a choice, right? And that to me, like, that's always the biggest problem. So let's jump in over here and talk about the oil price situation, which was odd. It was not as predictable, I guess, is what I would assume. So let's see here. Take a little sip real quick. Why oil prices fell after Iran's missile strike. I wanted to know this answer to this question, so that's why I'm showing it with you all, because it historically didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So on Monday, Iran launched a missile strike on the U.S. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, a retaliatory move following U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. Okay, we would normally expect such developments to send oil prices soaring. Instead, crude prices fell by 6% in late Monday trading. That decline may seem puzzling at first. After all, this was a direct Iranian attack on the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East. But the market's response makes more sense when viewed through the lens of risk pricing and investor psychology. According to New York Times reporter Farnaz Fasihi, Iranian officials coordinated the strike in advance with Qatari authorities and provided notification of the timing and targets. Sources familiar with the plan described it as a symbolic response designed to avoid significant escalation. This mirrors Iran's approach in 2020 when it warned Iraq before launching missiles at U.S. forces following the killing of General Qasem Soleimani. In both cases, the objective was to signal strength while minimizing the chance of escalation into uncontrollable conflict. Oil markets appear to have interpreted that restraint as a sign that significant escalation is unlikely in the short term. It's also a sign that Iran will likely not follow through on threats to close the Strait of Hormuz, a move that would be viewed as a major escalation. The fact that oil prices fell sharply after the news broke also indicates that traders viewed the immediate threat of a widening war as diminished. Okay, so that's what the markets are saying, and that's why oil prices fell, because traders and investors are basically looking at it and saying, yeah, I don't think anything else is going to really happen. So we're just going to keep going. And in fact, because of that chaotic period of time, it's likely that people were selling off all types of assets and everything else. And here you go. Now you have oil down and then turn around and the stock market's up, right? So very interesting. I found it interesting at least, and it wasn't predictable because I would have assumed, just based on historical context, that the oil prices would have skyrocketed, but they didn't. So, good for us for right now. And at the same time, even if you all did go out and top off your gas tanks, like I suggested in that video over the weekend, good. I mean, you got more gas, you're topped off, you don't have to worry about it, or you're better prepared, right? But luckily, the prices didn't spike like we would have assumed, and things haven't gone catabolic quite yet. They could get a little bit crazier. I don't know if the ceasefire will hold. I don't even know if Iran agreed to the ceasefire, and I don't know if the stipulations of the ceasefire make a lot of sense from a military standpoint. So we'll see really what happens at some point here soon. But for now, we are just kind of watching and waiting, right? So let's see here. We got some great people in the chat. Hustlebone says, symbolic response to the U.S. symbolic attack on Fordow. Traders know, right? Well, and that might be true, Hustlebones, and I appreciate you putting that idea out there for everybody to consider. I think considering things is important at this point in time because we never get the full truth and we're never fed all the information. So our job as people who want to be better prepared and use current event-related information as a way to strategize. Our job is to read between the lines and speculate to a certain degree to kind of war game out everything that's occurring in order to see how it could affect us or what is more likely to occur in the future, right? That's at least my understanding. Christy says, what about the missing uranium? Yes, so there's been some speculation and discussion about certain stockpiles of uranium that are missing, according to, I believe, that was Iranian media that originally put that out there. It was like 400 kilograms of uranium that is unaccounted for, something like that. I think right now it's too early to just start worrying about all these things because that's a lot of speculation in the sense of like fog of war, and it could be misdirection or who knows what else could be happening there. Because to have people on the ground inside of Iran to be able to like perfectly articulate the fact that yes, there's this exact amount that we're missing and everything else. Like I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens with that. But it might be, evidence for why more strikes need to occur or why more military action needs to happen. And that could be fabricated, right? It could be created in a way that's like allows additional action because, well, you guys took that uranium that you weren't supposed to have anymore and you did something with it, so now we got to do more. Or it could be the truth, and that could also still provide more opportunity for military action. So regardless, I'm kind of waiting on that one, but it's kind of like all the discussions right now about the Fordow facility didn't actually take as much damage as like it should have with those bombs because of how deep it is in the mountain and everything else. Like all it did was collapse some entrances and exits, right? But it didn't actually damage the facility. Well, the only way to know that is if you're there, right? Like even the U.S. military can't guarantee what happened that far underground, I assume. I mean, maybe they can and can't tell us about it because it would scare us. But at the same time, the fact that people are saying it didn't actually do anything or it completely obliterated it, which one do you want to choose or to believe? And it could go either way in all honesty, right? So I think it's like when you have reports come out that say things like, oh, it wasn't even damaged. Okay, according to who, right? And then other reports saying it was completely obliterated. according to who? And that's a question you should always ask. It's okay if you believe certain sources more than others based on, whatever it is, like allegiances or bias or whatever you want it to be. But at the same time, I think asking those questions is always a good idea because it's true. Like I can't independently verify who's telling the truth. So why would I assume one is lying and the other isn't when both could be lying or both could be telling their version of the truth? It's just, unfortunately, fog of war is a real thing that we have to deal with, and here we are, right? Let's see here. So, South Florida Prepper says, watch the movie The Sum of All Fears. I've seen it many times. I think it's a cool movie. I always like the Jack Ryan series from Tom Clancy, and Sum of All Fears is one of the more exciting movies. Not necessarily my favorite version of Jack Ryan. I think that's probably still Harrison Ford, just because of the legacy there, and the movies that he was involved in were very, very good. But Sum of All Fears is a good exercise, especially for anyone who wants to be prepared, about the idea of a rogue extremist organization importing a nuclear weapon into the United States via cargo ships and cargo containers, and then disguising it as a vending machine, basically, and detonating it at a large public event that had top-ranking officials at it, right? Like, so that's a story that's worth at least, considering as a viable, realistic possibility, because we know those threats actually exist, and we know that those possibilities are real. So thanks for bringing that up, just because I thought it was fun. Now, Paladin 1, if there was a ceasefire, it hasn't taken effect yet, right? Correct. So my understanding of that is that Iran will cease fire in like 6 hours, and then Israel will cease fire 6 hours after that, which I believe means that, Iran will just have to sit there and take whatever Israel throws at them for like 6 hours. So, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not very confident in the stability of the ceasefire, because why would anyone be like okay with that, right? Like, why would I just be like, yeah, let's do that? It's fine. Just do whatever you want to us for 6 hours straight. I mean, what limitation is there at that point? Like, what if Israel just like drops a nuke, within those 6 hours? Like, oh, well, it was within the time frame, so you can't really do much about it, but we're done now, right? We're good. Like, we're done. The 6 hours is up. No more bombs, no more nukes, right? It was just the one, but we needed to get rid of that one big target that you guys like wouldn't, deal with. So, but we're good now, right? Because you guys ceasefired already, and we're ceasefiring now. So, like, if you do something now, it's really your fault. Like, I'm sorry, but it's hard for me not to be cynical about that kind of stuff, right? So that's one of my concerns about the fragility of the ceasefire to begin with. So Dean says Israel is taking hits right now. And you know what? I mean, maybe you're right. So I'm going to look that up. See if there's anything happening right this second. I see Trump thanks Tehran for a weak response. It was a telegraphed, symbolic response is what they're saying, right? So interesting. Israel earlier today said they warned the top Iranian general that you only have 12 hours to escape. So that's also interesting. I'm not seeing anything that says that to me right this second, but things happen fast. Here we go. Sirens sound in Israel as military says identifies missiles launched from Iran. Okay. Well, are they within their 6 hours? So, like, that's why the ceasefire is so weird. I'm like, so we're just really going to sit here and take these missiles for the next 6 hours, right? I don't know, man. It's just, here we are, okay? The Israeli military said it has identified missiles launched toward Israel from Iran and said its defensive systems were activated. A short while ago, sirens sounded in several areas across Israel following the identification of missiles launched from Iran toward the state of Israel. At this time, the IAF is operating to intercept and strike where necessary to eliminate the threat. And keep that in mind. Strike is part of the words that they're using there, which means that I wouldn't doubt that means they're going to go strike missile launchers or any area where these missiles are being launched from. The alert comes after Iran's foreign minister hinted hostilities may have ended and that Iran would halt its military response if Israel stopped its strikes on Iran by 4 a.m. local time in Tehran. It is now shortly before 6 a.m. in Iran. And this update was from 2 minutes ago. So, great. I don't know, man. I don't know. So here we are. But listen, if you guys want to join the private live stream, make sure you hit the join button down below, become a YouTube channel member. And I think it will be a good time because we like to hang out and just chat and discuss whatever comes to mind. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, a lot of times it devolves into gun talk. And you know what? I'm good with that because it's one of my favorite subjects. DB Cooper, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad you appreciate these live streams. I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying to provide information where I can. And I hope you understand I greatly appreciate you supporting me that way. MB, it's propaganda. Mission completed. Nobody knows what the truth is, right? And don't forget, I mean, what year was it? Like 2002 when George W. Bush put that banner across the aircraft carrier saying mission accomplished, right? Like, so it's, I probably got a lot of that wrong, but you understand what event I'm referring to. These things are ever changing rapidly and at the same time very deceptive in nature. So now this missile strike from Iran might be like, maybe it's within the 6 hours. So can we just say, okay, well, if you have to, I guess, right? Or is it going to be the justification for why the U.S. has to do more now? Because, well, they started shooting again. I thought we had a ceasefire, right? So here we are. Great times. What's up, Gary? Checking in from Sacramento. Good to see you. And by the way, I used to live pretty much in Sacramento. I spent a lot of time in that area. I moved to Rancho Cordova originally from Florida, and sight unseen, so quite an interesting situation, but nevertheless, a good time, and I really appreciated my time in that part of the country. But now I live in a state that's a lot more friendly to Second Amendment rights and to personal preparedness and self-reliance. And I also, have great neighbors, and there's a really good community here. So I hope all of you are just staying ready but not panicking. We're already prepared, right? That's what you're here for. Like, we're preppers, we're ready to go. And, prepper has like a weird stigma about it. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, it's actually hurt me financially at times. Like, there's, sponsor opportunities or companies that want to work with people like myself to promote stuff or work with like projects or whatever it might be. But the prepper thing comes into play and it's like, oh, we don't know about that, right? Like, because that's, you guys are a little weird and you guys, you take things kind of to the extreme, right? And I understand that. So when I the reason I'm bringing that up in a way is just to let you guys know, like, when a company is willing to work with me, or like we're willing to work with people in the preparedness space, even if you're not interested in their product, or even if you don't think that, they're a great company, or what they sell is awesome, or whatever it is, right? Just keep in mind that like they're willing to support people in this community when nobody else is. And I think that's something that, maybe I should be a little bit more forward about, because it is a stigma to be a prepper, right? Especially when it's like directly in your name when it comes to your social media account. But these companies that are willing to still, support what we do, like in some cases are taking a risk because they know what that stigma is, and they also know what that looks like, right? So I always try to keep that in mind, especially even from, like, I know I have ads at times, I have sponsors, I have product reviews, stuff like that. It's kind of just part of like trying to make this thing work for what it is. But at the same time, like when I watch other channels and I'm seeing like ads about stuff that I'm like, oh, that product, or like, oh, that company, I try to keep in mind, I'm like, you know what? I should just be glad that they're willing to support this person for doing what they do and for helping the community as a whole. Because in reality, like that support is limited. Like there's only so many companies that are willing to align with people who preach preparedness and self-reliance and self-defense and things of that nature. It's not a let's just say popular topic when it comes to the commercial industry. So I just wanted to mention that because I think that sometimes maybe we should just consider that once in a while, right? Yeah. Hey, Bjorn, I appreciate that. Thank you for supporting me in that way, and thanks for saying the kind words. I'm trying my best to like keep everything relevant to preparedness to a certain degree, right? And you got to understand, like, especially with firearms and stuff like that, companies are very averse to that. They want to shy away from it because of all that stuff. And it's like when a company's willing to like put money on something that's going to be firearms related content, like that should, at the bare minimum, you should say, hey, at least they're supporting 2A stuff, right? You might not like their product or what they do, but like they're putting their money into something that nobody else will, right? So like, I don't know. That's just something that I think about, but and that affects me directly. So just wanted to kind of share those inner thoughts with you all. But I think we are likely to see this thing not fall apart. What? No, I'm lying. It's probably going to fall apart. Ceasefire. I don't know, man. Iran's firing missiles at Israel right this second, and Israel saying they're going to strike things that make it so that they can't get hit. I don't know, man. We'll see. Good luck, right? So if you guys want to be in the private live stream, hit that join button down below. Go join my subscribe star. It's $5 a month. It helps support the channel directly, and you can directly message me there, and I post stuff there, and we have a good time. But that's $5 a month. I'll put the link in the live chat, and it's in the description too, in case you're interested. And then anything else you need from me, go to magicprepper.com. Guys, we are this close to me releasing the very first product I've ever developed, like from the ground up, and it's very relevant to what a lot of you guys like to do. And it's also practical. So I'm really excited about it. And like, man, we're so close. So just like, make sure you, if you guys want to follow me on Instagram or X or anywhere else, make sure you're following me on some other accounts besides just YouTube, because I'll be doing some promotional stuff, and I'll be having some like, you know, like promotions for when we launch, because I'm really excited about this thing, and I think you'll like it. And the best thing I can tell you about it right this second is that it's made in the USA. So there's already that. Anyway, you guys have a great night. I will see all the members here in just a little bit. And besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.